Hi, everybody. If you notice, you're looking outside, it is kind of windy. In fact, the big, huge pine cones that I've been talking about, the ones at the top, have fallen off. So I'm glad I wasn't standing out in front of that house when that happened. I don't know when it happened, but they're not there now. Anyway, hope everybody's having a good day. It is Tuesday, and this is Telling Tales and Tracing Roots. Genealogy Tuesdays with Donna. We went to the grocery store this morning. We're not sure when the snow is going to come or if it's just going to be rain. And you can see my wind-blown hair. I did have my sweatshirt and my heavier vest on because though it says 49 degrees, it's probably about 41 or 42. Cold. Mike wears shorts and a jacket. So how about that? And I think he had tennis shoes on, not sandals. So it's that kind of day. Let's see here. What can I tell you? Super Bowl. Hi, Sherry. How you doing? Super Bowl is Sunday. Are we red team or green team? I am green team. And I will be pulling out my green shirt, etc. for Sunday. Went to the grocery store. Made sure we had our staples of taquitos, guacamole, salsa, tortillas, and whatever else we threw in the cart. So that is all good. Got extra chips. They did not have party size scoops. And the guy happened to be there that was stocking. And so I said, well, how do you not have family size scoops? To which Mike said, it's only two of us. And I said, yes, and yet Super Bowl is about 2 days at our house because we start eating the salsa and stuff, cheese dip, whatever it is. And the guy says, yeah, it's about a day and a half in our house. And I said, yeah, but Hangover Monday. He goes, oh, yeah, that's longer. I said, yeah, that's true. Anyway, so that was kind of fun to have a repartee with the chip guy, at the store. Don't always get to talk to them, and you don't see them all the time. So that's cool. Anyway, talking about genealogy, I have told you some stories about my explorations, my adventures in trying to ascertain who lived where, if I could get any information, things that I have seen that were surprising, information that I had been given. I did, in one of the things I was thinking about, when we were back east and in Kittery, Maine, I had gone to I think it was a library. No, actually it was a genealogy historical society. And they were very helpful to me in looking up the good ones. And we were actually able to get a copy of a map because they had information. I'm telling you, I have not explored information in other areas. I just know New England they're so rich in documentation. It is absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing, the documents they have. Anyway, they were able to find out what plot of land my ancestor had owned that was along the river across the bridge. And they copied out the map for that. And Mike and I were able to go and see that plot of land. It was absolutely amazing to be able to do that. And I feel so privileged to have had that opportunity and the occasion to be able to see that, to have the help. And they were giddy that we had that opportunity to go see it. They were just giddy. They could give us the information. They were excited for us. It was very generous of them and so very kind. Genealogy people are so very kind. Anyway, so keeping in mind that documentation is so important when you're doing your search, we do have several avenues available to us on the internet that give us an opportunity to run down that trail, those paths. Case in point, do you know that there are pension rolls from the Revolutionary War, that there are military documents from the Revolutionary War, and you can find out if your ancestor fought in the Revolutionary War? Do you know that also in the Civil War, there are pension rolls that will tell you whether or not your ancestor applied for the pension or his widow applied for the pension, and what his service was, and you might actually have a signature that has been digitized so that you can see that, and it will at least give you some information that perhaps will lead you, one nugget of information can lead you to the whole plot of land, depending on what that nugget is. But you follow enough nuggets to get the fleshed out story as best you can of the relative that you're trying to trace. It would be wonderful, and it is an opportunity for you to, in the context of history, where that relative was born, raised, and died. Now, I can't talk enough about cemeteries. I know I go on ad nauseum about them, but cemeteries, when a community is formed and people die, the first establishment is a cemetery. The first place that tells you about the people that lived there is a cemetery. It'll tell you about births and deaths. The monuments might say how they died. It will tell you possibly who the founders of the town are. It will certainly tell you who was the affluent in town, as their markers are bigger and more ornate than others. Maybe not so much now in the modern world, where they all seem to be, flat stones, so to speak. But, in yesteryears, it is different. I remember going into a graveyard looking, it was a mess, looking for this particular ancestor that I was looking for, and it would have been from the 1700s, but the graveyard was there. But the graveyard was so overgrown that I was afraid after I'd taken about 5 steps in, it was very wild and overgrown. We were worried there might be snakes in the growth that I couldn't see, so I was not able to get far enough into there. Also, a lot of the tombstones had toppled over. The graveyard wasn't taken care of well, which was, if I lived in the area, I would go out there and take my weed whacker and do what I can. There are people through the findagrave.com society that actually adopt cemeteries, these smaller ones, and take care of them, doing the mowing, actually restoring. There are people out there that make a living when you hire them to go restore and clean off, and so you can see the writing again, take the mold off it, take the dirt and the grime from hundreds of years in some instances, and be able to read that stone again, which, is miraculous in itself. Now, one of the other things that you can do in the census, which also gives you other documentation that you might get. They might tell you if they owned or rented the home. Hi, Rachel. How are you doing? Thanks for joining me. We're talking genealogy. They might tell you if they owned or rented the home. They'll tell you where the home was located. They'll tell you what their income was. They'll tell you what their skill was, what they did for a living. They'll tell you how many children are in the home. They'll tell you what the ages of the children are. They might tell you where they were born or what native country they came from. They will tell you their ethnicity. And that kind of changes a little bit from year to year, 1850 versus 1860, 1870, 1880. We don't have the majority of 1890 burned, and so we don't have those records. And there is a big jump, 20 years. From 1890, we don't have that. We have 1880, and then you're jumping to 1900. So in that 20-year span, a lot can happen. Born, die, marry, have more children. So you kind of have to pick up the pieces. And if a woman marries, 1 year, 1880, say, she's Jane Doe, and 1900, she's Jane Douglas. Well, the problem is you don't know that she got married if there isn't other documentation, or you don't know, that maybe she had children and the last name of the child was Douglas. You can surmise that she got married, but, if you can't find the documentation to it, then you're kind of lost, unless you can find other nuggets, again, the nuggets of information to help you fill in that blank. Some of the problems with looking at old documentation is it was cursive writing, and it might not be legible, or it might be written for Old English, or it might be written from people who we don't spell the same as they did back, 100 years ago, 120 years ago. So you have to kind of figure out the handwriting. Not everybody's handwriting is the same. And there are genealogy apps that will help you decipher what the handwriting is. There are also, there's a community out there of people that have come across this before, and they have the experience, so they're able to decipher it. So don't not make use of that if you have old documentation and you just can't read it. There are others that might be able to, so keep that in mind. Also, the most important as we continue into 2025, can you believe it's February already? I'm shocked. Every time you have a family get-together, doesn't matter if it's a birthday party, anniversary party, I'm just getting together with dinner with you on a Sunday night, there are family members who remember other family members. Get them to tell a story. Go around the table. You want to talk about Billy's soccer game or, how the Super Bowl is going to be. But don't lose track of the fact that you can learn about your family through stories. Now, if you've been watching Henry Gates, Tracing Your Roots? And there is another one, PBS, and I can't remember what the name of that is. I eat that stuff up because there are people that don't know what their grandparents did. They don't know their grandparents' names. They don't know what their grandparents did. They don't know where they came from. They don't know. And you don't know what you don't know if you don't ask the questions. I'm always asking questions. I think I was born asking the word why. It vexed my mother greatly. I still vex. I have a friend of mine. She says, Donna, I'm glad we don't live close together because you always ask why. And it's exhausting. And I said, yeah, but if I don't understand why things happen or why it is the way it is or what your reasoning is, then I don't understand where you're coming from. So that's why I ask why. This is the same thing. You want to know how your family is the way it is? Ask why. What caused that? Where did they come from? Who are the siblings? Do you know the names? Do we know any family lore? And don't forget, it might be a rumor, but there's always a grain of truth in that rumor. Always a grain of truth in that rumor. So don't negate any of that. Write it down, document it, and it might be further in your life. You might not be interested totally right now, but further in your life, that might be something you have time for. That might be something that intrigues you. That might be something one of your other relatives, siblings, children, become interested in. It would be a perfect project for you and your grandchildren. So your grandchildren can learn, and they can take those stories that you tell them or give them, and they, for the next 2 or 3 generations, those stories can be handed down even further. So don't lose track of your family's history. Everybody has one. Everybody has one. So don't let that get lost. So many of them have been. Anyway, that's all my advice for you today. I hope you have a wonderful Taco Tuesday. We are expecting maybe snow in the morning. So I hope you have warm temperatures and you're able to lay by the pool somewhere with your flip-flops and work on your tan. I know it's only February, and Valentine's Day isn't far away, so make those dinner reservations. Anyway, take care, everybody. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.